All right, good morning, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm Councillor Paul Ainsley. I'm the chair of Scarborough Community Council. We do have a quorum. I'm now calling meeting number 20 to order. Welcome, everyone, both in person and virtually. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person here at the Scarborough Civic Centre in the council chamber. This meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.com at Toronto City Council Live. For the land acknowledgement, I would like to say on behalf of myself, my colleagues, and our staff that although we may be meeting in different locations today, Scarborough Community Council would like to acknowledge the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also would like to acknowledge Toronto is covered by Treaty Number 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. If you're registered to speak at today's meeting, if you could please listen for me to call your name. I will call the speakers in the order that they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be found online by visiting the Scarborough Community Council page on the city website at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. For members of Community Council, the clerk has provided all agenda materials on that portal at toronto.ca/council and on the clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are available if members need help with your electronic devices. I would also like to remind everyone to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at scc@toronto.ca to help with motions. At this point, I'll ask if there's any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Seeing none, can I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting on January 14th, 2025? Moved by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? Carried. Just before I go through the agenda, Deputy Mayor McKelvey, you have an announcement that you would like to make?
Thank you, Chair Ainsley. I just wanted to let people know that we have students from the University of Toronto Scarborough, the best campus in this country, that are here. Yes, from the City Studies program. And they're taking a course called Current Municipal and Planning Policy and Practice in Toronto. Their instructor is also joining us. There he is there. And Kelly Snow is the instructor, but he also works for city planning. So they are in good hands. And I also just want to point out that it's reading week, but they're still here. Yeah. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor McKelvey. And I'm very proud, my oldest son, James, actually graduated from the City Studies program at UTSC, and he did the co-op program, and he's doing very well. So thank you very much for being here, Scarborough Community Council, and good luck with your studies. And thank you for being here early on your reading week as well. All the best. Okay, I am now going to go through the agenda. So our first item is SC 20.1, 2759, and 2761 to 2763, Kingston Road and 52 St. Quentin Avenue, official planning zoning bylaw amendment application. This is a decision report for approval. I'm going to hold that for speakers. SC 20.2 is our next item, 253 Markham Road, 12, 20, and 30 Dunelm Street, city-initiated zoning bylaw amendment, decision report for approval. We have two registered speakers, but one is the applicant and the other is the applicant's lawyer, I believe, and you don't need to speak this morning. I'm fully supportive of this, so I'm going to move the recommendations in the report. All in favor? That carries. Looking forward to seeing a shovel in the ground there. SC 20.3, Assumption of Services, Registered Plan 66M-2555, Goldman, Ellesmere 2 Development Incorporated, application number 13268-033 ESC 37SB, otherwise known as 1001 Ellesmere Road, Subdivision in Scarborough in Ward 21. Councillor Thompson?
I'd like to hold.
Councillor Thompson is holding number 3. Our next item is SC 20.4, Assumption of Services, Register Plan 66M-2556, Actonbridge Holding Corp., otherwise 8833 Sheppard Avenue East, Subdivision in Scarborough. Deputy Mayor McKelvey.
I'll move staff recommendations.
Deputy Mayor McKelvey is moving staff recommendations in number 4. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is SC 20.5, Assumption of Services, Register Plan 66M-2540, otherwise known as 67 Kirkdene Drive in Ward 25. Deputy Mayor McKelvey.
Move staff recommendations.
Deputy Mayor McKelvey is moving staff recommendations. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is SC 20.6, 513 Huntingwood Drive, application to remove a private tree in Ward 22. We have one registered speaker, so I will hold that. Our next item is SC 20.7, permanent closure of a portion of Railway Street and Center Street in Ward 24. That's in my ward. I'm going to move the recommendations in the report. All in favor? That carries. SC 20.8, 26 Gilder Drive, construction staging area in Ward 21. Councillor Thompson?
I'm going to hold that, please.
Councillor Thompson is holding number 8. Our next item is SC 20.9, Huntingwood Drive at Ridgecrest Drive, a pedestrian crossing protection in Ward 22. This is Councillor Mantis's ward.
I'd like to move staff recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mantis. All in favor? That carries. SC 20.10, Kalmar Avenue, traffic calming for speed humps in Ward 20. Councillor Candabel? Councillor Candabel is moving staff recommendations. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is SC 20.11, Audrey Avenue, traffic calming speed humps in Ward 20. Councillor Candabel? Councillor Candabel is moving staff recommendations. All in favor? That carries. SC 20.12 is our next item. Ellington Drive, traffic calming speed humps, Ward 21. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to move the staff recommendations and also to thank the staff for obviously the work that's been done. You may recall some time ago we dealt with a application from the church regarding the development at Ellington and Lawrence, and many of the residents who came spoke about the need for road and traffic improvement and so on. This is a demonstration of the fact that staff have been looking and listening to the residents in advance of this development application itself. And so we had promised at the time to the residents that we would be taking actions. This is indicative of that action and so on. So I'm delighted that this report's here. I want to thank Mary and all the transportation traffic staff and everyone for their great work. There's more to come. This is just an assurance to the residents that we are in fact listening and we will address the issues and needs as they arise. So thank you, and I would simply just again move the recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson's moving the recommendations in SC 20.12. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. SC 20.13, Y Valley Road, traffic calming in Ward 21. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the staff recommendations and again to thank the staff for the great work and the nimbleness and thriftiness in terms of how this has been done. You know, it may seem rather simple. It's just some speed bumps and speed humps and so on, but they bring a sense of comfort to the community. There's a school in the area, along with the fact that people are skirting through from either Birchmount or Kennedy Road. in order to get through and so on. And they do this at such speed and with just disregard, actually, for the movement of people either walking or, riding their bicycles and so on in the area. And so the hope is obviously that this will help. It's not a foolproof solution in the sense that things can still happen if people are not careful and don't take safety as a priority. This is an indication that we do think it's really serious, and it's really important for us to minimize the throughway area that this has become for access to Ellesmere, either going west or east. So again, thank the staff for bringing this matter forward on behalf of all the residents. Thank you.
And you're moving the recommendations? All right. Councillor Thompson's moving the recommendations in SC 20.13. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is SC 20.14, Lockie Avenue, traffic calming speed humps in Ward 22. Councillor Mansis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also, I want to thank Mary and her team for putting together this report. And it is critical that we have safety measures in all our schools. And with the team of Vision Zero, we were able to put these speed humps on Lockie Avenue. So I'd like to thank everyone for their hard work, and I would like to move staff recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mantis. Councillor Mantis moving the staff recommendations for SC 20.14. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is SC 20.15, Reidmount Avenue, traffic calming speed humps in Ward 22. Councillor Mantis?
I would also like to move staff recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mansis. Moving staff recommendations in SC 20.15. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is SC 20.16, East Avenue speed limit reduction in Ward 25. Deputy Mayor McKelvey.
Thank you. I'll move staff recommendations and just want to say thank you to city staff for preparing this. It was in response to having someone blow through a stop sign and almost take out a crossing guard. So I'm glad that we'll have the speed reduction and there'll also be an automated speed camera coming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor McKelvey. All in favor of the recommendations on SC 20.16? That carries. SC 20.17, Queensbury Avenue, accessible parking space in Ward 20. Councillor Candavel? Councillor Candavel is moving staff recommendations in SC 20.17. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is SC 20.18, Windover Drive, accessible parking space in Ward 24. I'll move the recommendations since it's my ward. All in favor? That carries. Next item is SC 20.19, 701 Warden Avenue, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880, fire routes in Ward 20. Councillor Candavel? Councillor Candavel is moving the staff recommendations in SC 20.19. All in favor? That carries. SC 20.20, 35 to 41 Danforth Road, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880, fire routes in Ward 20. Councillor Candavel? Councillor Candavel is moving the staff recommendations. All in favor? That carries. SC 20.21, Fishleigh Drive between Glen Everest Road and Midland Avenue, traffic calming, speed humps in Ward 20. And sorry, I need to have this added as an item of new business. All in favor? That carries. Did anybody want to read Councillor Candavel's letter?
I'd like to hold a question of staff.
Deputy Mayor McKelvey is holding. Our next item is SC 20.22, reallocating unused Section 37 funds secured in bylaw 1022-2014. This is in Ward 22. There's a letter from Councillor Mantis. Can I have a motion to introduce his letter? Moved by Councillor Mantis. All in favor? That carries. Do you need a moment to read his letter? Councillor Mantis, would you like to move your item?
I'd like to move staff recommendations.
Okay, Councillor Mantis is moving staff recommendations in number 22. All in favor? That carries. All right, we are going to go back to our first item.
Sorry, just point of order. I just want to point out, we have 5 items held. Confirming. And I think we had some of the students, we did guesses on how many holds. I think a few of you had 5, right? Good job. It is 5, right?
Yes,
Oh, there you go. Okay, I think there was 2.
we have 3, 4, 5. I got 5. We all got 5. All right, our first item is SC 20.1, deferred from our January 14th meeting, 2759 and 2761 to 2763 Kingston Road and 52 St. Quentin Avenue, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application. This is a decision report. For final approval, we have 3 registered speakers. Our first speaker is Matthew Lang from MA Development Services by video. Have I got him on video?
Morning.
All right. So Mr. Lang, you have 5 minutes to address Community Council. Each counselor can ask you questions for up to 5 minutes. After that, we bring it back into committee where each counselor can ask staff on the item for questions up to 5 minutes. And then we can speak for up to 5 minutes on each item, each counselor, and move questions if so desired. So Mr. Lang, you have the floor whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. And I won't be long. My name is Matthew Lang, agent for the applicant on this project. I'd like to thank Councillor Candeval and city staff for the work with us. They've been excellent, and I believe we have a great project here. I'm with Jennifer Mastre of Photon Planning and Design. She will give our presentation, so I would defer over to her, but I would like to just note that we are in full support of the final report before you and recommendations. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lang. Jennifer Mastre, the floor is yours. Jennifer, can you hear? Oh, there she is. You have 5
Hi.
minutes whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jennifer Maestri. I'm a planner with Photon Planning and Design. And as Matthew has indicated, we'd like to thank staff for their hard work on this project. I do have a brief presentation that I would just like to share here on the screen. Just one moment.
Yep, no rush. And I'm holding your time.
Everybody, that has worked for everyone?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, wonderful. As indicated, the development applications for 2759 to 2763 Kingston Road. The property is located on the southwest corner of Kingston Road and St. Quentin Avenue. As you can see here, each of the properties contain 2-story buildings, one of which contains commercial use and the other 2 residential uses. The subject property is situated along Kingston Road, which is an avenue in the City of Toronto's official plan. It's in a segment that's experiencing growth and development as per the directions in the official plan. This image highlights the subject property in relation to existing and proposed developments along this stretch of Kingston Road. Similar mid-rise buildings are proposed and have recently been constructed within this neighborhood, similar to what is before you today. The official plan designates the properties along Kingston Road as mixed use and the property along St. Quentin as neighborhoods. The application proposes to redesignate 52 St. Quentin Avenue to a mixed use area to be consistent with the Kingston Road properties. The zoning for the site is currently commercial residential for the 2 properties along Kingston Road and residential detached on the St. Quentin property. The proposed applications for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications seek to put in place a policy and regulatory framework to support the development of a 10-story building, 9 stories plus a mechanical penthouse. The proposal contains 95 units with a unit mix that is in compliance with the city's growing up guidelines for 25% larger units. Further, the proposal is accessed from St. Quentin off of a private driveway, which provides access to underground parking and a loading space, which are internal to the building. Commercial space is proposed along the Kingston Road frontage. Some very high-level stats of the proposal. The proposal provides 48 parking spaces within 2 levels of the underground parking, 33 for residents and 15 for visitors, 5 of which are for the commercial space component of the building. 73 bike parking spaces are also proposed, 7 short-term and 66 long-term spaces. The building sections here highlight the built form that contains a 4-story street wall along Kingston Road, which steps back to the 9-story building. The 4-story street wall wraps around St. Quentin Avenue and steps down towards the neighborhood to the south, providing transition. The proposal falls under the Kingston Road angular plane and proposes a height that is generally equal to the right-of-way width of Kingston Road. The building steps down towards the residential neighborhood to the south and is consistent with the mid-rise performance standards, including council-adopted updated rear transition performance standards. Excuse me. So in conclusion, our opinion is that the proposed 10-story mixed-use building is appropriate for the subject site. It represents good planning. It adds density to an underutilized site along an avenue of the city in which the city has recognized that growth and development is appropriate along these areas. So we're in agreement with staff's recommendations in their report, and we hope that council will support these applications. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mestry. Councillor Canaville, questions of the deputant?
Good morning through you, Mr. Chair. The parking ratio has been flagged as a concern from the community. Can you speak to why a higher ratio is not a part of the application?
Certainly. Based on the city's recently adjusted parking rates, we are providing more than what is currently provided or required of us in the bylaw. So we feel that the rate being provided is appropriate to support the proposed development.
When you go to market, is your intention to be clear to potential buyers if that there may not be a parking spot for them? Is that going to be made clear?
Yes, we can note that with the buyers. We don't have a developer, I think, at this point in time, but that is something that can be looked at.
And how soon are you expecting your client to build?
I'm not sure. We still have to submit a site plan application and go through that site plan process as well.
Mm-hmm. Are there any intentions to modify this proposal following and if council adoption?
We can look at it through our site plan application and work with staff to provide an appropriate development here.
There's concern that if approved, there might be an attempt to seek more density. Is that part of any intention?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Can you commit that the application being presented is what will be built and submitted as part of the SPA?
Yes, our zoning, anything higher density than what is proposed at this point in time would require another application to come back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cannavale. Other questions on this proposal? From the deputant, seeing none. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Peter Thatchuk from the Cliffcrest Scarborough Village Southwest Residents Association. Morning, Peter. Are you and Marina doing it together, or is Marina? Okay, you know the drill. You got 5 minutes.
Okay. Good morning, Chair and Councillors. I'm Peter Thatchuk. I'm the director with on behalf of the Cliffcrest Scarborough Village Southwest Residents Association. Okay. Would you like me to restart? Or did you hear my preamble? Okay, I am Peter Thatchuk. Good morning, Mr. Chair and councillors. I am a director with it, appearing on behalf of the Cliffcrest Scarborough Village Southwest Residents Association. As you've heard, the RA is not, or as you will hear, the RA is not against development, but we believe it should take place in a way that is not only in the best interest of developer, but also desirable for our existing neighborhoods. The province has significantly diminished your municipal powers and those of our communities to engage in meaningful dialogue. I implore you not to exacerbate this already unsatisfactory state of affairs. This development is one of many proposed along Kingston Road, and it is our opinion that once again the impact is not being considered holistically. Segment studies are not reflective of the full impact. The province's planning policy is to increase housing, is bringing an unprecedented scale of development to Scarborough and significant increased density and population. The consequences of condo and infill developments, some so close to the bluffs, will further stress current aging infrastructure, safety and security, transportation, healthcare, and social supports, as well as local environments. Traffic, parking, and safety should be of significant concern at this location. The decision to remove minimum parking standards does not remove the need of parking and the impact it will have at this location on Kingston Road, and it serves only to create more unsafe and hazardous conditions. Witness the spate of snowstorms we've experienced recently in the past week and the increased expense associated with clearing large amounts of snow when the plows are impacted by cars parked on municipal roads. From experience, I understand that in this forum, we don't even have an instance of rebuttal and that your planning department, in conjunction with the applicant, has the last word. However, before you dismiss our concerns, I would suggest that you go to just about any existing multi-density property in Scarborough and observe the spillover results of insufficient parking, even in the buildings that were built before minimum parking requirements were abolished. Why is this the case? My observations, born from almost a third of a century living in Scarborough and a lifetime of work in related fields, is that people, in order to cope with the high rents relative to their incomes, are, if not quite doubling up, substantially increasing the number of people occupying each unit. One-bedroom units that formerly housed 2 to 3 people are now occupied by 4 or more. 2-bedroom units previously occupied by 3 to 4 people are occupied by 5 to 6 ad nauseum. As much as we can hope for less reliance on cars in our inner suburbs, the harsh reality is that our lack of appropriate public transportation and current infrastructure deficiencies make a lie of the 15-minute walkable city in Scarborough Southwest. While I will not profess any unwarranted expertise in traffic planning, and sure if anything really turns on it. I would like it noted for the record that on page 4 of the traffic impact study, table 3.2, the signee has taken every possible advantage afforded it by rounding down their numbers, irrespective of whether the calculation is above or below 0.5. The result of that is that their maximum permitted parking calculation is understated by 1 space. It's our opinion that you need a better plan than one that, for all appearances, appears to capitulate to the demands of for-profit developers who, once they gain their necessary approvals, are often back applying, not here, but directly to the Committee of Adjustments for additional variance relief for purposes of increasing profits and or reducing expenses. That's fine. That's what they do, and power to them, but that doesn't necessarily make good planning. At a recent Scarborough COA last month, incidentally presided over by a non-Scarborough resident chair, a committee member remarked that it had been 3, actually it's now 4 because the subject that was being discussed at that hearing was approved. 4 new proposed developments with an affordable housing component have yet to put a shovel in the ground in Scarborough. The current proposed development does not promote the much-needed affordable housing or affordable living in Scarborough, and is not the missing middle level of development that objective planning experts are calling for. Gentle, human-scale development is what is needed. We need to ensure that there is a holistic approach to development. To do this, we need full studies to assess cumulative impact, coupled with meaningful community engagement in order that informed decisions can be made that will ensure the outcome of an affordable lifestyle and our hopefully collective visions for complete communities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peter. Questions of the deputant? Councillor Candavel?
Peter, through you, Mr. Chair. Peter, can you explain why parking and a ratio that may not be sufficient is a challenge to the immediate community to the south?
Yes, it's a challenge because what you have is you have parking that spills over onto the abutting streets. And for just about any street that has a thoroughfare aspect to it, what you have is already narrower collectors or local roads that are further narrowed, and you have cars that sometimes cannot pass each other. I can think of one that comes to mind is one that's actually subject today that was approved, is the one at 253 Markham Road in Dunelm, where nothing started, but yet every day when I come and turn down that road, there's cars parked lining that street that are probably a spillover from Cougar Court, yet we're going to put more units there. It's madness. It doesn't seem to reflect the reality of what we have. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, Peter. And secondly, you spoke and referenced the need for a cumulative study, a segment study. In planning reports for these dev applications, there is the impact for the site, and I think they speak to the general area. Why do you feel it's important to look at it from a holistic, cumulative approach?
Well, because what I have seen is that the reports that are filed for individual, not just this one, but individual applications along Kingston Road speak to the additive aspect of the units they're providing, but doesn't address the fact that oftentimes within a baseball throw away from the subject property, there is another development that has their hired guns talking about the additive aspect of traffic, but they're not looking at each other. There's ones on Kingston Road, and I'm sure you're aware of them, Councillor, that there are 3 or 4 going on in the immediate area of each other, and each of their reports, as I read them, basically talks about only their contribution, but not their contribution in conjunction with the others. That's why we need a more collective, holistic approach to the development that's going on.
So despite there being language within this report, for example, of cumulative impact, you think there's value in having a broader approach that connects the dots between multiple reports?
Absolutely, or I wouldn't be spending my golden years coming in front of you as often as I do.
Lastly, you spoke to the need for, given sensitivity in this area to the Scarborough Bluffs, which, as we know, through the TRCA, there's erosion that's from the beginning, I guess. What are the concerns in how TRCA is involved or not on a development application like this, which is on the south side of Kingston?
The TRCA, for whatever reason, seems to be deficient, in our opinion, as an RA, in coming to grips with the sensitivity and the fragility of the bluffs, and the fact that we have additional developments coming through that, look, there's water. There's water draining south towards the lake, underneath the bluffs. We all know it's a fragile environment. We wouldn't be having the studies that we do, but again, we're not connecting the dots. It is no accident that the last number of years we've seen more landslides, I believe, in the bluffs, and it's because we have a proliferation of iceberg basements, 2 levels or more that are one or more levels that are greater than the footprint of the property. I'm not talking about the subject, but every time you put something underground, the water doesn't just say, oh, I'm going to stop going anywhere. It has to find a way around it, and to do it without looking at the cumulative effect, and I believe that should be the TRCA's job, is, again, I think very short-sighted.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation, sir. Connecting the dots, comprehensive study, and so on. What will that achieve then for you? Will that achieve a situation where you have no development, smaller development? What does that achieve for you?
I believe what it tells you is what is the maximum that we can do it, that we're comfortable with long term. And no, neighborhoods have to change, Councillor. We're not against development. We're against development that is so single focused that it doesn't take into consideration the other hard and soft infrastructure requirements. So yes, look, in my life, I think in everyone's life, you try to look at a big picture before you drill down to the small ones. It doesn't appear to us that we have done that aspect. We seem to be doing these on an ad hoc basis.
So,
hopefully that answers your question.
fair enough. No, that's great. Have there been, that you're aware of, avenue studies and other studies to look at the comprehensive objective, as you have described it, to give you and others in the community some degree of comfort in terms of appreciating that the staff has, in conjunction with, obviously, applicants and so on who've come forward, they have actually done any of those studies that you're hoping to see?
Short answer is no.
None of those studies have been done?
Not that I'm aware of. Now, I did do a deputation about a year and a half ago on another development that was proposed in this area, and I was told that there were studies that were done. We have tried to find them. We were assured by planning that they were there. We have not been able to find them.
You haven't seen them as that?
Haven't seen them, can't find them, would love to know if they're around.
Right. So I heard in your presentation you express the frustration with respect to parking on streets and so on, neighborhood streets, correct?
Absolutely.
Right. And so the frustration has come in absence of the development that you're speaking of, because you're also saying that when the development comes, or if they come, it's going to add to the burden. Is that part of what you were saying?
You've got that correct.
Right. So I'm wondering then, I'm curious as to what are the current actions or activities that are being taken in order to address the current conditions? Are there parking restrictions? Are there timing with respect to when people can park? What's the impact of that? And has that been part of the narrative of a comprehensive approach in addressing some of the issues as it relates to your frustration and maybe others in the community regarding parking?
Are we speaking about this specific site, or are we speaking about the collective development that's going along Kingston Road?
you presented to us this morning an issue as it relates to the specific site as well as the surrounding comprehensive issue. I'm asking you, based on what you've said, because you've said in the area now, when you turn on a particular street, you have problems and vehicles parking. I'm asking you whether or not there are any efforts to create the restrictions at this moment, absent of the future development.
Not that I am aware of. However, if there have been, it doesn't seem to be working because, look, a lot of the inhabitants of our multi-density properties have to have cars. They have to have them because they can't get to the other part of the city where some of them work. They don't have adequate transportation. So the cars, you know, you can say no parking between X and X. So all that's going to do is push them further afield. So no, the answer is no.
So you've said something really interesting. You said, not that I'm aware of, to my question.
Right.
So if you're not aware of any of the restrictions, what exactly is your complaint then? Because if there are challenges, would you not want to go, for example, to your local councillor? Would you not want to bring that forward? You've indicated that you're part of an RA, which is great, but would you not want to bring those challenges forward because you're concerned about them? Because at this point you've said, not that you're aware of, but you are very informed, you're very articulate, you come forward with respect to great ideas and concern, which are all very valid. All I'm trying to ascertain is whether or not you have taken the smaller step to try to address those current conditions. That's all I'm trying to understand.
If you're looking to me for the solutions is more parking on site. However, and we have been speaking to that for a long, long time. Now, even if you put restrictions like you're asking me about in the immediate vicinity on the local and collector streets, the problem is the people who are living there currently and the people who will be living there, you're just going to make people whose lives are already difficult more difficult by not providing adequate parking.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next deputant is Marina Tadden.
I am Marina Taddens, the Director of the Incorporated Not-for-Profit Cliffcrest Scarborough Village Southwest Residents Association. We want to emphasize that the RA is not opposed to development and want to work towards a general common goal of appropriate development with a vision to support complete communities. It has been our experience that the City of Toronto approves projects on a site-by-site basis rather than evaluating the cumulative impacts of multiple large-scale projects in our neighborhoods. Provincial Planning Statement 2024 points to planning for appropriate transportation, water, sewer, and other infrastructure necessary to accommodate current and future needs, and to protecting the environment and important resources. It also states that municipalities are the primary decision makers for local communities. We are concerned that the City of Toronto is too focused on meeting numbers mandated by the province. Affordable housing is not being prioritized, and in parallel, not considering the social and infrastructure supports needed for this growth. You have an opportunity to pause and take a closer look. The condo application under review today takes up practically 100% of the site, provides minimal parking spaces, and gives no consideration for local parking and traffic issues and the seasonal mayhem associated with Bluffers Park. This development and many other development proposals currently under review along Kingston Road by City Planning have been submitted since the time the Scarborough Waterfront project was undertaken, and so were not considered in the environmental assessment. As well, our experience is that existing studies by the TRCA are not even being considered during the planning process. Why not? Last week, it was announced that crews will soon mobilize on the waterfront project Brimley Road South Trail for full construction expected to follow in 2025. I am curious, with so much being invested at the bottom of the bluffs. Has the city done their due diligence to understand the impact development applications being approved at the top of the bluffs will have? Councillors, a reminder of Bluffers Park congestion and how this year the overflow went to the Guild, East Park, Doris McCarthy Trail, etc., creating cascading problems. The need for parking will increase as the TRCA moves forward with the future waterfront trail project. What impacts will development and other nearby developments have to parking, safety, and traffic? Over the last several years, development activity in Ward 20 is destroying trees and paving permeable lands at unprecedented rates. This is changing water flow above and below ground in an area where water tables are uncommonly high and homes are prone to basement flooding. Studies would help bring informed decisions, guide growth, and what factors to monitor for impact. The original official plan was a balanced approach to design and development. It maintained bylaws which kept a healthy balance of green space and living space. With the recent and significant changes to the official plan, this balance is lost, and we have yet to see the full impact of the growth that is being proposed. Hopefully, the consequences of heavy snowstorms this week will teach city planners to make allowances for snow piles space in our community. Councillors, these snowbanks fresh in our minds today is a real-life example of the problems which are being realized. If we continue to push growth with poor foresight and poor planning, it will be more than the consequences of snow piles that we will be dealing with in the future. At a recent September 9th, 2024 meeting with city planning teams, I pointed to the big picture map created by the RA showing 14 active proposals in our catchment that could bring a population increase of 10,000 plus. One policy planner in attendance questioned the 23-story condo on the corner of Brimley and Kingston Road, located directly across from the development being reviewed today. Thinking it was an error in our information, checked the city at AIC and was surprised when this 22-story condo was in fact a development that was approved. At this time, I pointed to the city map. At this meeting, I pointed to the city map showing various studies throughout Toronto and asked why, with so much development being approved in our neighborhood, could I find no studies addressing cumulative impact? I was told by one of the city planners in attendance that the city planning simply makes recommendations to council, and it is council that makes the decisions. Councillors, the decisions you are approving will have consequences. You have influence over initiating and facilitating studies so that informed decisions can be made. Will you ask for a policy area planning study to address cumulative impact? Our neighborhoods need immediate protection, and this should not be delayed any longer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your deputation. Questions? Councillor Candavel?
Thank you, Marina. And in line with my question to Peter before on the need for a cumulative segment or an avenue study, the applications that are put forward speak to surrounding impacts. How would a broader approach, whether it's segment, area, avenue, do a better job than saying, hey, let's just look at these individual 14 applications together? What would be the benefit of that study?
Well, then you would understand what the full impact of all the developments will bring. Right now, we're looking at segment studies that are incomplete, don't capture the full picture. We're asking for a cumulative impact study to look at what the full impact will be for development. For example, at a recent community consultation for Parkcrest, they mentioned the condo developments at 3310 and 3355 Kingston Road, but didn't mention the other condo that's just a block away at 3291, these three developments, including the 145 stacked townhouses that are being approved there, are going to bring a population growth of more than 2,000 new residents within 2 blocks. And the cumulative impact in the segment studies is not shown fully. And it's not just that the traffic is not just focused in this area. It's throughout, and that's why you need to look at it holistically, and I think that's what's not happening. We've been asking for this for the last 5 years. When I looked at the city planning map that showed studies throughout Toronto, we asked, why is there none for our neighborhoods with 14 developments currently active in the city, and they had no explanation.
I wanted to appreciate and recognize your the start of your delegation, that the RA is not against development. It recognizes that this stretch affords the ability to create gentle density that can be in character with the Cliffcrest neighborhood and community, which has certain distinct features and characteristics. So I think that that's important for my council members, colleagues to recognize that this is a nuanced approach that you're bringing and that we all share, that it needs to be done right. Recognizing the RA sees the need for this, that you're not against development, you recognize it needs to be done.
Sorry, Councillor, do you have a question?
Yes. What benefit would you articulate that would arise from community working with myself as councillor and city staff to recognize a more comprehensive approach to planning along this stretch?
As I said at the very beginning, we're not against development. We want to see our communities revitalized and developed, but we want the densification to be appropriate. We want it to be supported with infrastructure. We want the transit. We want the shopping nearby. We want to have places where you could sleep, work, and play. And what we're seeing is development without the infrastructure happening in parallel. And we're asking for the studies so that we can understand what the impact will be for development. Don't approve the development unless you understand what the impact will be and what is necessary in order to have complete communities.
Thank you. Thank you, Marina.
Thank you, Councillor Canavelle. Other questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much. And we'll bring it into committee. Questions of staff? Councillor Canavelle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to staff. You know, we heard from the RA residents about concern on parking. Can staff share the reality or the challenges of asking the applicant to have a 1-to-1 ratio or a higher ratio?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the chair, as was stated by the applicant, you know, the city does not require minimum parking spaces for units in our citywide zoning bylaw. We do look at the impact of traffic and the impact of more parking spaces or less parking spaces in a development on a case-by-case basis and cumulatively when we do bring forward area-wide studies like the mid-rise on avenues work that just got brought forward. I think the challenge, you know, there are a number of issues that were brought up. The Residents Association made reference to the impact on the bluffs and building below grade. Providing more parking spaces requires more underground garage, which has impacts, possibly, I don't know if these impacts are real, but could have impacts on the bluffs, as the Residents Association mentioned. They also have climate change impacts, so they're providing more underground parking means more concrete, which means more CO2 emissions. Providing more parking means inducing traffic, right? there,
Yeah, I think it's
so it's a balance.
bit of
right?
a
We have to
trick, yeah.
try to strike a balance on every application, and it's very difficult to do. But I
but
think,
ultimately, the citywide bylaw is what precludes them from us demanding more.
yes.
Yeah, okay. Next question on this application, was TRCA consulted on this application?
No, Counselor. The TRCA is circulated on applications where an application is within the TRCA's regulated boundary, and this application does not fall within that boundary.
The commercial retail aspect of this, can you share the expected commercial retail space?
Absolutely, Counselor. So I believe we're securing about 800 square meters of retail space. This is more than the retail space that is currently existing on the site. I believe there's about 700 square meters of retail space. Sorry, I might need to check those numbers. I'm not sure if that's 100%. It's a general. There is an increase of retail space.
On shadowing, are there concerns from staff on shadowing, potential shadowing on the land south?
So we did look. There was a shadow impact study that was submitted. We did look at that impact study, and it was used in our response back to the applicant to change the build form. We do not have concerns with the height of the proposal and the shadow impacts. It's actually 1 story more than the as of right mid-rise permissions permit for this section of Kingston Road.
As staff are aware, you've crafted the motion that I'll be moving in the next segment on the unit mix, which is seeking to increase significantly the 2 and 3 bedroom count, which will decrease the unit. What is staff's comment on my motion?
So the existing unit mix that is secured in the bylaw is consistent with the growing up guidelines, which is 25% large units. Should the councillor move that motion? We don't have any concerns with that.
Can you roughly speak to the number of units that would drop as a result of moving to a 40% larger bedroom unit mix?
So that's it's a difficult estimate to provide because we don't know how an increase in large units will result in a change to the other unit layouts. So for instance, in this case, the 1 bedroom units are around 600 square feet. It's likely that the applicant, if they're required to provide more 2 and 3 bedroom units, they will reduce the size of those 1 bedroom units to accommodate more units overall. It will likely result in a lower unit count from 95 units that are currently proposed, but we don't know exactly how many units will be proposed as a result of that.
It was also raised that there isn't any green space on this site. Why was that not part of staff's response and comments to the applicant?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm glad they brought it up. So this is a mid-rise building site. It's often the case that on avenues or on mixed-use area sites where we want density, there isn't really there doesn't tend to be a lot coverage requirement like you see on single-family detached housing sites. And the reason for that is we want the one, they take up a lot of space. This is a lot of density, but we want the building to interact with the public realm so that the front door is right on the sidewalk, so that when people are walking past, they enter the retail space or they enter the lobby immediately and don't have to walk a ways to get to the main entrance. This is also a small site, so the possibility, the feasibility of doing that would have been very difficult. But there is green space, and this proposal represents an improvement to the site in terms of the public realm and the green space that is proposed. Because there will be trees, tree-lined frontages along both Kingston Road and St. Quentin, along with a sidewalk which doesn't exist on St. Quentin today. So the trees that will be removed I believe, are private trees that are at the back of the lot, and there are 3 or 4 trees sort of at the corner of the edge of the St. Quentin property to the south. And they're all sort of bunched up together. I don't believe they may not be healthy. I'm not sure about that, but I believe this is an improvement to the site in terms of the public realm and the green space overall.
I have one last question.
Councillor, you're well over your 5 minutes.
Can I go? Yeah, just one more question.
Let's
Yeah,
give your colleagues a chance. Yep, okay.
Okay.
All right. Councillor
Thank you.
Annabelle, last question.
Thank you. As you heard in my questions to the consultant, they have committed that their intention is to build what's being approved. Can staff speak to our ability, whether through motion now or at council in March, what we can do to ensure that commitment is upheld?
So the zoning bylaw will secure what is being proposed today, and should the applicant choose to move forward with a site plan application and eventually build out the proposal, they will have to conform to the zoning bylaw regulations that spell out what exactly is allowed on the site. But there's nothing that city staff nor council can do to prevent the applicant from bringing forward a future application. So they can do that.
A future application here, or?
Well, so they could bring forward a new rezoning application to look at building a tall tower if they'd like, and we wouldn't likely support that on the site, just as an example.
Right.
But they could also bring forward a minor variance in case they wanted to add an additional story or change some setbacks, and that would go forward to the Committee of Adjustment.
Would staff support that as a minor variance?
It absolutely depends. We would need to see what those changes are.
Sorry, no, in particular to one-story addition.
We don't know. It depends. It could if they could change the massing in such a way where that is not supportable at all. It could be done in a way where it's very minimal in terms of the impacts. I don't know.
So to clarify and confirm, are there any tools that we can, through staff change or amendment motion, that can ensure that their commitment to build is what is on the paper, what is being approved? Is there any tool or ability to lock it in?
Through the chair, the short answer is no, but the long answer is the zoning bylaw being recommended today, as could be adjusted through your motion, would be enacted and be law. Should the applicant wish to change their plans for the site, there would be mechanisms, as my colleague Mr. Bulger indicated, through either Committee of Adjustment or a new application for rezoning to adjust those permissions. But there's no tool, to use that word, to say this and only this.
Mm-hmm. So to perhaps reword it to confirm, is there any way to prevent their submission to a C of A legally? I don't know if Mark would be better.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Cannavale. Councillor Thompson, I saw your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Mr. Ventresca, I'll start with you first. How long have you been a planner?
Through the chair, I've been employed by the city for 20 years and a brief stint in the private sector before that.
Just too young. It doesn't seem that good.
Was that a question?
It's a statement. You're young and handsome. That's good. So I asked that question, Mr. Ventresca, through you, Mr. Chair, because I wanted to understand, when we look at areas, do we just simply willy-nilly look at an application and just simply respond to that? Or do we have a plan? Do we have a proposal? Do we have an understanding? So I ask this because I want to know if I'm unique, because in Scarborough Centre here, you've got all sorts of plans, all sorts of studies that I'm aware of, that I'm working with, our community's working. Is this area on Kingston Road being treated differently? No plans, no comprehensive study, nothing that connects the dots, or what's going on?
Through the chair, a two-part answer.
Sure.
The first part is that this segment of Kingston Road is, while identified an avenue, does not have as of right zoning that was brought forward through an avenue study like other segments of Kingston Road do. The other corridors end around Midland. and then they pick up again around Guildwood GO Station. The stretch in between, there are no as-of-right conditions done through comprehensive study. There are as-of-right conditions created through site-specific applications and also through recent action of council through the Housing Action Plan.
So,
The second part, if I may,
Sorry, go ahead.
the both official plan and most of the terms of reference for site-specific applications speak to existing and planned contexts. So a servicing report, for example, would need to apply both a background factor for growth as well as identify applications within the sewer shed that would impact drainage from a specific site. So potentially, the deputant did raise, well, we don't see all the applications in the engineering report. They may drain to different sewers that go to different pumping stations that go to different outfalls. So my commenting partners, my colleagues in the development review process all need to respond to that context, whether or not there is a framework that was generated through a planning study.
yeah, so I wasn't being facetious when I asked you how long you've been a planner, because I wanted to understand the context of your experience, because this is validated based on your explanation, so thank you for that. So if I hear you correctly, there is no as of right in this particular area. It's a area-specific determination as to what can be done. But at the same time, the infrastructure itself, there are different layers or levels in terms of connectivity. So the concerns that are raised by the residents here, how could we assure them that that work and that understanding is being done to ensure there isn't flooding, there isn't an impact on the bluffs and erosions and so on? How can we help them to understand that?
So through the chair, development review is one of many, I'll say channels instead of avenues, many channels through which these questions are asked. There are basement flooding studies, for example, that are undertaken throughout the city to understand how, on a holistic level, sewer systems are working. The deputants mentioned the TRCA environmental assessment for the waterfront project and the waterfront pathways. And then on a site-specific basis, when a development application comes in, the terms of reference for development for these various studies are adhered to. 20 studies were filed with this application, reviewed by transportation, engineering, urban design, et cetera, and all responding to existing and planned context conditions. So while development review is the most acute in that it proposes a change, many different branches of city governance and otherwise are taking a look at these issues and trying to connect the dots in their own way.
Would the RAs be able to see this information, or is it proprietary? Is it something that's concealed from them, or do they have access to this?
Through the chair, all application materials are posted online, as you know.
It's available.
And this, we've had very good conversations over multiple applications with this RA who have provided often very sophisticated commentary on some of these reports, which has been forwarded to respective divisions for their input and
Right.
feedback through the process.
I just ask one final question about parking. We have no real parking standard as part of our policy currently. Is that correct?
Through the chair, there is no minimum parking for residential units,
Right.
but there are minimum parkings for others, yes.
Yes, commercial and so on, yeah.
Correct.
So with a plan that comes in, it is based on the developer and or their respective consultants in terms to put that plan for staff just to be aware as to what they're proposing.
Through the chair, that's correct. So there's also nothing preventing if marketing goes well
Right.
through the sale or the rental of the project for an applicant to add
Right.
a level of underground parking.
And just a final question, Mr. Chair. With respect to determination in terms of the size of unit and unit counts and so on, what is the market determination? How is that based? Is it based simply on we want 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, or 3 bedrooms, or is it basic on the market in terms of what the market will bear or the needs in the community?
Through the chair, with guidance from the Growing Up document, staff generally try to secure a certain unit mix through a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment. The size of the units are often dictated by market conditions because in a pre-construction format, you're usually paying a price per square foot, and an additional cost that would be put upon larger units potentially, which is also a per square foot cost, would be maintenance fees. In certain markets, a large unit would approach the cost of a detached or semi-detached or a townhouse in a similar area like Scarborough. In other areas, large units are quite viable in terms of an equivalent price point for what else could be.
Affordability is an issue. Thank you.
Absolutely, yes.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Deputy Mayor McKelvey's next on my list.
Thank you. Recognizing that Kingston Road is an avenue, was it one of the avenues that were identified in the report that came to council last week?
Through the chair, it already was an avenue.
already
It was
an
not added,
Okay.
no.
And it does not have as of right. However, the next steps for that avenue report are adding in as of rights on avenues?
Through the chair, that's partially correct, although most of the site is already designated mixed use, so it would have been seen as of right. Sites along this corridor that have residential permissions were already granted as of right avenue zoning through a separate housing action plan stream that I believe was late 2024. So for example, there's a Canadian Tire site across the street and another couple mixed-use designated sites that had CR zoning, which now have as of right avenue zoning through that action of council late last year, although that bylaw is under appeal.
Okay, so a lot of these sorts of items that are coming before us in council, this may not be coming to us in a few years as we go through this process of as of right.
Through the chair, council has moved in the direction of making more of these proposals more streamlined through the review process. I won't say as of right, but more streamlined in that they would not necessarily need a full rezoning, or they would not necessarily need to provide a full segment review.
Okay, so right now, though, this project's undergone an individual review for all of the different considerations, infrastructure, green space, transportation, all those things that are involved in development review?
Yes, that's correct, Councilor.
Councillor Chang and I had motions around visitor parking, and I know that you're revising visitor parking guidelines, so where does that fit into this? Is there visitor parking that is included?
Yes, through the chair, there is visitor parking included through the minimums as currently exist.
Okay. If this is not approved by council, could it go to the OLT?
Through the chair, I would imagine the applicant would launch an appeal.
Well, whether they do or not, but like that is an
Whether-
avenue that is open.
That
to
is
the
that is an opportunity available to the applicant.
Right. So, well played, well played. And once things go to OLT, we no longer, like, we really kind of lose our ability to shape a project.
Through the chair, it does become more difficult to influence outcomes through the OLT in a contested manner. Most city staff and councillors always advocate for the best decisions to be made locally through council.
And you are recommending this today?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're good? Okay. All right, I have some questions. Get my mic on. So I just wanted to ask, so the deputy made a comment about there's 14 different building applications in the area along Kingston Road, and I'm just trying to understand clearly. So on page 4 of this report, there's a long list of studies and plans that were done and reviews. So I guess what I'm trying to understand, so this application looks at all of those studies as you're putting the final report together. And then there's 14 other development applications on Kingston Road. Do they all get looked at within isolation of each other? When you're looking at the volume of traffic on Kingston Road, how much water discharge is going to go in the sewers, for example, do they get looked at each other in isolation, or how does that work?
Through the chair, I believe it was 14 within the catchment of the RA. So some are on Eglinton, some are on. So that, and the reason I bring that up is because different applications will have different impact on the cumulative nature. So I'll use the sewer example because my colleague has explained it so well to me. Not every one of those 14 applications will drain to the same system of sewers, only maybe 3 or 4. So the terms of reference for a servicing report specifically speak to the catchment that the development drains into and the downstream capacity. So if a development is upstream of that, it would be considered, and if a development is proposed downstream, it would be considered. The Residents Association also in their materials brought up potential soft sites. Those are considered a little differently through a background projection, but not because there's no parameters around those sites. It's not treated as if it's a new and real development. That proponent would need to come in, make an application, and their servicing report would need to be examined.
Okay.
The
So for,
cumulative
parking,
impacts.
for example, if you have those 14 applications, X number of parking spots, so you're expecting X number of cars, do you look collectively at Kingston Road and say, that's too many vehicles, or that's going to detrimentally affect the traffic flow on Kingston Road, so we need to look at more stoplights? Like, how does that get?
Again, that would be, transportation would be a different catchment, so that would be looked at a little bit more cumulatively. But again, a background projection for traffic growth across the city, as well as known or proposed developments, would inform that study.
Okay, and then in terms of water flow, and I chair the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. So my understanding with the Conservation Authority, we have mandated provincial laws that we have to follow. And we have a catchment area around the Scarborough Bluffs that all of the experts say, like, this is the impact area of the Scarborough Bluffs, and anything beyond that would not detrimentally impact the Scarborough Bluffs, is my understanding.
Through the chair, that's a correct understanding. So the TRCA will specifically involve itself in applications that fall within this regulation area, is the official term. If it falls beyond the regulation area, particularly in a post-Bill 23 world, the TRCA does not have a mandate to review matters that go beyond the regulation limits.
Right. And my understanding is that area is regularly reviewed for its appropriateness to the surrounding cities or areas that it's in.
Through the chair to you, yes, that's correct, particularly as new information comes to light. A large storm, water goes where we weren't expecting water, or they weren't expecting water to be before. They take a look at those things to reevaluate the regulation limit, and it's reviewed. I don't know how often, but it is reviewed fairly regularly.
Right. And then in terms of water runoff for building, excuse me, water runoff for buildings, my understanding is it's very similar to a home. If a home's built on Kingston Road, like, water runoff has to stay on the property, or you have to find a legal way to run it into the storm sewer. You have to landscape so it's not going on to adjacent properties. And if I had a building beside a ravine, for example, I can't allow the water runoff to just flow into the ravine.
Through the chair to you, I believe that it's called pre and post development runoff coefficients, that the development must anything beyond a certain level of storm, a new development must hold that water in a stormwater tank if it falls on the site and slowly meter that water out in drier conditions. That same criteria is not placed on homes that are not subject to city review. So if someone were to put a pool in their backyard and pave a lot of it or grade it in a way that sheets runoff into a ravine or onto adjacent properties, there's less control there than there would be for this type of development that goes through a rigorous city review.
Okay. And then in terms of commercial development, so this application's increasing the amount of commercial development that's there now. Excuse me. And we don't have any ability to say to the developer, you know, the neighborhood wants a grocery store, so we want enough retail space there for a grocery store or a mid-sized grocery store. That's solely up to the developer.
Through the chair to you, we can certainly secure an appropriate amount of space if the building can accommodate that type of floor plate, and this one cannot. But there's no opportunity for the city to influence who tenants that space, for example. However, through the recent policies adopted on avenues at council, there is a policy thrust for existing commercial uses to be involved in the consultation process and to determine how or if what conditions would be necessary to bring those types of uses back. So it's an issue that we're alive to in terms of the existing commercial retail footprints that are on sites, but there's no specific tool or mechanism to require a certain type of use to go there.
Yeah, and we have no legal authority to say, hey, there's a grocery store there. Now, when you build your condo, we want a grocery store back.
No, sir.
Okay, and then I guess I also wanted to the unit mix. So this process, you went through a community meeting or meetings, the developer, they've done like a market study, I guess, on what they think is an appropriate mix of units that they can sell on the market. Is that my understanding?
I think it's fair to assume that the proposal before us today is a reflection of what the developer believes they can sell on the market, yes.
So going back after that and saying now we would like to change the unit mix, like I know you wrote a motion for Councillor Canavelle that's coming. Does that motion not cause an issue for all of that process?
I think that the developer could answer whether they are opposed to the motion, but my understanding is that there were conversations between Councillor Canavelle and the applicant, and they were okay with this motion.
Sorry, say again?
The applicant is okay with the motion.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you very much. I believe that's the end of questions. Speakers on this item? Councillor Canavelle?
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I think, this was a really important and interesting conversation. I think many of us took important nuggets from this application. It's something that I think clearly speaks to gentle density and the ability to offer perhaps more affordable ownership in this community, and one that doesn't present tremendous or onerous problems in this immediate application. I also want to appreciate the commercial retail that's being offered as part of this application. And many of us value and appreciate complete communities, and this is an important aspect in how to create a more walkable space in this immediate location. But that also speaks to the reality of the built form in this community. And as one delegate efficiently laid out, the reliance on the automobile in Scarborough, and particularly in this area, is not going away. And I think that's something that we have to contend with, both as we process applications here locally, but also citywide, that one-size-fits-all bylaw that was brought in has challenges in neighborhoods like ours that is transit deficient. So want to give that comment for consumption as we contend with these issues citywide. It also speaks to the reality, and my constit office sees daily the impact of parking. Ticketing has increased, and we've had a number of neighborhoods to the west of here that have spoken and their frustration and anger with ticketing that has come out as a result of increased enforcement, a 3-hour overnight bylaw that needs to be addressed. And I know this will create problems, and I think we need to be more cognizant, again, from a citywide perspective on what solutions, and I appreciate Councillor McKelvey and Councillor Chang for looking to address it through a visitor parking process with city staff to address that. And I think we just have to be realistic about the realities of the need for parking and the nature of how particularly families that choose suburban neighborhoods like ours to settle down, that demand is not going away, and we don't want to be in a position where neighbors are pitted against neighbors, whether it's new residents, existing residents. We have to be cognizant of that as we make these applications. And finally, I think we heard the value of bringing a more comprehensive approach to area planning, and that's something I'm looking forward to sitting down with staff and community to ensure there's greater engagement and a process to connect the dots, whether it's infrastructure, transportation, or city planning, to ensure all voices are heard, information is available, and we bring a stronger comprehensive planning framework to an area that's going through tremendous change. And this is where I think we have the ability to be creative and productive, and the motion staff have arranged with the support of the applicant is to increase the unit mix, the larger bedroom unit mix, from the minimum 25% to 40%. So if the motion can be put on screen, then we'll see the applicants agreed to increasing the 3-bedroom count to 15% and the 2-bedroom count to 25% for a total of 40%, which I believe will be market friendly and be appreciated by many who find it challenging to perhaps own a home, that their ability to get a larger bedroom in an area that they desire, which is Cliffcrest, provides new options. And I think this is a conversation I know colleagues across our city, I know in North York, are advancing. Our newest councillor, Chernos Lynn, has spoken to this conversation in her campaign, that many families across our city are looking for larger bedroom sizes. So I hope this spurs more thought with our policy planners at PHC to perhaps have a review of our growing up guidelines and provide more larger bedroom minimums. So I'd like to close that, though this is our motion in support of the applicant, my hope is what is being approved here is what will be built. And we need to, as a community council, maybe as citywide, think about what tools we can create to ensure that applications are adhered to and what is being approved is being built. And my hope that is what transpires, and we build the framework to ensure that continues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm sorry, you're moving the recommendation?
Moving my motion, and then I guess we move the recommendation.
Recommendations in the report?
How do I do that? I'm looking for Nancy, including my motion?
Recommendation.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm moving the recommendations in the report, and then do I move the amendment or my motion? It's moved, okay.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Deputy Mayor McKelvey's next on the list to speak.
Thank you. And firstly, I want to thank Councillor Candeville for that motion. I completely agree. We need to stop building all these 1-bedroom units. We've seen they're not moving. I also know that there are many seniors that want to downsize, and like a small 1-bedroom is not going to cut it when they're in a big home and they're trying to downsize. And in fact, you know, I will say that the norm now is to have 2 bedrooms for 2 individuals. Like a lot of old people, especially old guys, they snore. You don't want to be with them. So I got one at home. So you know, like, we need to be realistic about downsizing and what people are looking for when they are downsizing. We have in the city too many 1-bedroom units. They're not moving on the market. They're not family friendly. They're not senior friendly either. So I think it's important that we are building those bigger units. So I thank Councillor Candeville for that. There's a couple of things I also want to point out that Councillor Candeville said that I agree with. So one is ensuring people build it. And I was shocked in questions at council, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, it's all a blur, but we have 180,000 units that have been approved in the city of Toronto and are not being built. So I think we need to think on this and, you know, pushing developers that when they do get their zoning approved, they're getting shovels in the ground and they're building the housing that people in the city of Toronto need and not waiting. And the second thing I want to point out that you said I think is also important that we note is that developers will sometimes get approval here, and then they'll go to the Committee of Adjustment and ask for changes. And I do think we need to give thought to that process where they have to come back here to the table where the original decision was made, and where the original residents were heard on the file. And so I think that's something we have to give thought to as we move forward. One of the things I think we have to remember, and why I'm supportive of this application today, is we have a positive staff recommendation. We do know that if we deny these things, they go to Ontario Land Tribunal, and everything that is decided on here gets thrown at the table. That means the more bigger units, for example, everything's back at a starting point, and the developer can bring something in that's vastly different than what came to us in its original form today. We do have that positive staff recommendation, so I do take that to heart. But I do want to also point out that with the Avenue study that was passed at Council, again, I think at that last meeting, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we will be moving to more as-of-right zoning across the city with avenues. So the first step was the adoption of the official plan that says that the avenues are the places to grow. The next steps will be consultations, and further discussions about moving things into as of right. So I think it's important that we keep bringing these things to council like we did today, where we have these important conversations, where we do push the needs of our community as much as we can, including making bigger units. And so I think we all have to be very thoughtful in watching how this process evolves as it goes forward. So anyway, thank you to the community for coming out and continuing to lead the charge on these things. It's important that we have vibrant residents associations that are talking about the changes that are happening, how we can make them work in the best way. And it's also good that we have local councillors like Councillor Candibal that are likewise trying to make sure that these developments aren't just one size fit all, but really do fit a balance of needs, those being both the existing residents, but also the residents of the future. And, you know, I love my children, but I don't want them to live at home forever. So we do need to build housing so that they can move out, and we do need 2-bedroom units so that I can downsize and not have to sleep with my snoring husband. So anyway, just lots on the table there, but I think we all have a personal connection to why we need to build in the city of Toronto. And this is just another great example of doing that, working collectively together.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor McKelvey. Councillor Thompson to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the residents for coming in to speak this morning and so on. And I think it's really important that we have clarity and a great sense of understanding of their concerns and so on. And while a lot of work is actually being done, it's really important for that information to get out, or at least the window as to where to be able to open the window to find that information and so on. I will be supporting the recommendation in the staff report, as been stated by my colleague, that you know, if this matter is taken out of our hands, and I say the collective hands of the residents and the council as a whole, we don't know how this particular matter will be adjudicated at the tribunal, and it's an unfortunate situation often when they do go there, because we lose control. We don't have real, we don't win a lot, although I've heard that's in dispute. Apparently we win our fair share, at least I understand, but often it feels like we don't win a lot and so on. You know, look, I think it's always very difficult in terms of the complexity of development and how, whether or not it's fully gauged by staff, or whether or not staff are looking at the totality of the component and the complexity of it, and whether or not they are looking at connecting the dots and so on. We've heard that they do, and I know they do, because in varying areas of my ward, we've gone through some of these issues and challenges, and we've actually grown, and it has gotten better for the community as a whole. It's never perfect. It's there's always massaging that needs to be done. I do also have concerns with respect to when we make decisions to approve an application here, there's an opportunity to go to the Committee of Adjustment for another 2 or 3 stories and so on. And the input from the community is rather limited, and all of a sudden it's, well, I thought we approved 12, now it's 15 or 18. How did that happen? and often the fingers pointed at the local councillor in terms of, oh my gosh, you allow this to happen. And of course, it's a process. And so I do think that we have to revise that and see how that is adjusted. You know, the comment was made about 180,000 units that is been approved but hasn't been built. I think we also have to be reminded, though, of the fact that it's a market condition. There's a situation occurring right now where the cost of, you know, material, the cost of getting a mortgage, the decision-making with respect to taking the risk and so on are problematic for those who are planning to build as well as those who are looking at acquiring. Now, the councillor has indicated, based on his motion, that he has spoken with the applicant and they're supportive of the 40%. I wasn't going to support that until the councillor indicated that there has been agreement with the applicant and so on. So that's fine if there's an agreement with the applicant and the councillor. Who am I to not support it based on what they've agreed upon? But I do think that when you talk about a 3-bedroom unit in any complex, you have to compare that to what it would actually cost to buy a bungalow in other places in the city. And in many instances, it would probably be more preferable to buy the bungalow because you can, you know, do a whole series of things, and that investment is not just air rights that you're actually buying. Quite frankly, you actually have terra firma, a piece of land that actually is associated with your property. In many of these cases, you have no lands that's associated with the property. You're basically having a unit that's part of the air rights that you're selling and buying in this particular case. But I wanted just to draw some attention and actually take some exception to what was stated by the speakers about the TRCA. I have, over the last 22 years, worked with the TRCA and in fact, have been a board member of the TRCA. They are an amazing organization. In fact, they have done, and you're the chair, Mr. Chair, they have done so much to help and protect and safeguard our environment and our city. And I will just simply say the leadership of John McKenzie, who is actually a Scarborough boy, and I've known John for many, many, many years, is just absolutely amazing. He's a great leader for that organization. And I would dare simply say for anyone who has concerns about the TRCA, I think just call John up or just call somebody up at the TRCA or maybe speak to the chair to have a conversation to get more, to be more familiar and more knowledgeable about what they do. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll be supporting the recommendations and the motion that is coming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. So we believe that's the end of the speakers. So we have Councillor Canavell's amendment. Put it on the screen. And Councillor Mantis is back. He is. All in favor of the amendment? That carries. All in favor of the item as amended? Recorded vote asked for by Councillor Thompson. Madam Clerk, the floor is yours.
The item as amended. Councillor Thompson, Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Candevelle, Councillor Ainsley, and Councillor Mantis. That motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Thank you very much. That concludes that item. Our next item is SC 20.6, 513, Huntingwood Drive, application to remove a private tree in Ward 22. We have one registered speaker, Mr. Yan Cow. My apologies, sir.
Oh, thank you. Morning. Thank you for your time.
You've we can hear you clearly, and you have 5 minutes to address Community Council.
Okay, thank you. I'll make this short and sweet. So I love nature, and it is a blessing to be surrounded by so many trees in this neighborhood. This tree I'm requesting to cut down is a beautiful, beautiful blue spruce tree. However, this tree has to go for my family's long-term benefits due to two big health concerns. First one is me and both of my children, 2 boys, have allergies to pollens. In every spring, almost every spring, the thick layer of pollen dust from the tree covers almost the entire house. And these pollens drive us crazy. Closing all the windows and with air filters, running around the clock does not help us much. I'm not sure if I can share my screen to share a picture with you. Oh, here it is. sharing button doesn't work.
I paused your time, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is the picture I found somewhere else. I couldn't find a picture. I don't have an actual picture, but in reality, it's worse. Are you able to see my screen here?
Yes, we can see
Okay,
it.
yeah. In reality, this is the pollen. It's worse. It's surrounded all over my house. And secondly, is my boy. He sleeps. This is my boy. He sleeps in the room with the window facing the this spruce tree directly, and in the window you can actually see the tree that is towering over his room. Um, so, and he keeps his window blind closed all the time. When I asked him why, he said he doesn't feel safe looking at the tree while it leans over his bedroom. So he feels stifled in the presence of a tree. I feel the same when I look at the tree over the window. So it creates unnecessary everyday stress for my son, and it's not good for his psychological development. And I'm requesting to do this for the sake of my children. And as a parent, I want my children to feel safe living in my house. So it's my responsibility. And I understand and support the city's plan to achieve a 40% canopy coverage. For this cost, and if the community council approves my application, I'm willing to replace the tree to be taken down with 5 new trees. Cash lieu to the city to help me replant these trees. I hope the council will support my application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Questions of the deputant? Seeing none. Thank you very much, sir. Questions of staff? Councillor Mantis?
Yes, sir.
How far is the tree from the foundation of the home?
It's about foundation. It's about, I would say, 6 to 8 feet. It's very close to the house.
Have you seen any? Has there been any damages over the years to the foundation of the home?
I can't tell in the basement because the basement is finished.
You haven't had
That's
any
also,
leaks or anything in your basement?
there are some leaks, water leaks. I'm not sure if it's related to the tree.
Okay.
There have been leaks in the basement, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Mantis. Questions of staff on this item? Deputy Mayor McKelvey?
Thank you. Do you have any reasons why this tree should be removed?
No, there was nothing indicating the tree needed to be removed.
It's safe and it's healthy?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor McKelvey. Other questions of staff on this item? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, through you to staff. How many trees are on the property?
Lost trees, there are...
Not you,
including
sir.
this one, there
No,
are
sir,
9.
not you, not you. This is for staff.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
Through the chair, just give me a minute
Sure,
to check.
yeah, take your time. Take your time.
Appears there's about 4 or 5 trees on the property.
4 or 5. And are they all the same type of trees?
It's hard to tell without having actual pictures.
So you haven't actually gone to the site to visit?
I have not. My
Has it?
assistant planner has.
They have?
Yes.
Right. And just in terms of, the speaker mentioned the proximity to his child's window. Based on your experience, through you, Mr. Chair, if you have an allergy to trees and or a specific tree, is that allergic reaction or the inherent impact of the causation and effect of the tree, is that sort of singular, associated with just one tree when one person is sleeping? Would you be affected by it if you were out walking in the yard, for example? In this case, you have more than one tree?
Through the chair, yes.
All right.
Like the one tree is not going to be the singular cause of allergies because the pollen spreads quite far.
That was where I was going to, but I don't have to ask you that question. You just answered it, and thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Speakers on this item? Councillor Mantis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am supporting the application for the removal. I know that over the years we've had similar applications that have come. We have always said it's always about the health of the tree, but in this situation, I support the residents' claim for the mental well-being of his children and his family. And I don't believe that anyone needs to be worried about a tree scraping or hitting the windows because of the proximity from of the branches from to the home. So I'm in support of the removal.
Thank you, Councillor Mantis. Other speakers on this item? Deputy Mayor McKelvey?
Thank you, and I appreciate Councillor Mantis's comments, but I will be voting no on this application for consistency with my previous votes here at Scarborough Community Council. And as somebody that is allergic to trees, I know I should not have become an environmental scientist. I regret that all the time, but I am allergic to trees, but we do have tree bylaws that we need to protect. They are important, and we do know that in the City of Toronto, they contribute tremendously to the ecosystem services that we have. So I understand Councillor Mantis's position. I just don't share it.
Okay, thank you. Other speakers on this item? No other speakers? Okay, thank you. I'm supporting the tree. It's a beautiful looking tree, 60 centimeters in diameter. I understand the concerns the applicant has, but I also think we also understand the community benefits that a tree like this brings to the environment, the neighborhood, as we're trying to support our climate goals through Climate TO. I think we need to be doing more to support our tree canopy and ensure it's protected, especially this is a beautiful Colorado blue spruce tree, 60 centimeters in diameter. If the resident has concerns about it hitting their home, I think they maybe need to look at doing more trimming of the tree and pruning. If it's bringing in an arborist, I want to thank staff for their continued work on things like this and protecting our tree canopy. And as I said, I won't be supporting the motion. Thank you. All right, so we have the motion before us from Councillor Mantis. All in favor of the motion?
Recorded vote.
Recorded? Okay. The floor is yours, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor to amend the item with the motion from Councillor Mantis? Councillor Mantis is in favor. Any opposed? Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Candevella, Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Thompson, that motion fails.
Okay, so that item, the tree is staying. Our next item is SC 20.8, 26 Gilder Drive, construction staging area in Ward 21. It was held by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson, questions of staff?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the portion of Gilder that would be closed, it's on the north side of the roadway?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the chair, yes, it's on the north side.
Right. And so residents will be directed to cross over to walk on the south side should they need to get to, there's a building on that site currently, is that correct?
Yes. Councillor, no, they will not be directed to the south side of the street. There will be a temporary walkway within the construction staging area that the pedestrians will be able to walk through.
That was a trick question, by the way, because the report does say that. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry, just for a moment. Councillor Mantis, can you turn your camera back on for me? I need your Councillor Candevella back in the room for quorum. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Thompson.
Oh, no problem, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, so there'll be a safe passage through the sidewalk area and will be fully protected, correct?
Through the chair, yes, Councillor, that's correct.
Can you help me to understand in recommendation 4 about the distance? It's a point 95 meters east of Midland Avenue, and a point further 200 meters further east. Can you help me to understand that?
The distance are usually based upon what turning radiuses vehicles require.
Okay.
The construction staging area is going to be a drive-in, drive-out, which would allow, the distance is required for those vehicles, for the construction vehicles.
Right. Okay. And then with respect to the dust management and cleaning up and so on, what is the plan there? Is there a plan to ensure that's minimized as much as possible?
Councillor, through the chair, yes, in the report it is regulated that the general contractor will keep the streets clean, keep the dust. There'll be mud mats and things for the vehicles.
Right.
And then cleaning will be as dictated, not it won't be written as a timed thing. It will be as they've been told to do.
Right. So I asked the question because I wanted to understand whether or not a log would be kept, for example, to ensure that at certain intervals, we at the city would be assured that the work is actually being done. Do they keep a log for these types of things?
We do, Councillor.
We keep a log.
Yes, my department,
So
as I'm in charge of that area.
Yeah, so how do you know then? Because I've had the experience at Birchmount and Lawrence where we had to repeatedly call to actually have the trucks come to water the area and so on to minimize the amount of dust flumes that were coming through. How do you monitor that? Do you have a full-time person on staff? Do you go by periodically? How do you do that?
Councillor, through the chair, yes, we have a works on traffic coordinator that would regularly visit the site to ensure that all conditions are being met.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Just a quick question, Mr. Chair, for planning staff, Mr. Ventresca. Mr. Ventresca, during the negotiation and discussion with respect to the development of this site, which I'm happy to support, we talked about the utilization of the new building by the tenants in the older building that will have access to the amenities and so on. While I know that's not in front of us here, it's the staging, I'm very clear on that. I don't know what the status of that particular arrangement is because we're moving now to construction staging and so on, and permits are going to be issued. So I'm assuming that more detailed discussion has taken place as part of the site plan. So do we actually have an agreement as it relates to this site with respect to the the building that's in sight now and the new building to be built?
Through the chair, while I'm not exactly familiar with the details, the Section 37 agreement would have secured the general terms under which that sharing would have occurred. And that would have been vetted, as you know, because the development is supported by the city through its purpose-built rental program. So that would have been something that would have had to have been checked off in terms of shovel readiness to qualify.
That's really the reason for me asking the question. So could I
I see. Okay.
see that at some point?
I can certainly make those arrangements, but again, the general terms were secured through the zoning approval, which you supported, as you indicated. And if it's a matter of getting the copy of the agreement or the specific implementation details, I can work with your office to get you that info.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Canavelle, you have questions? Okay.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, just to get an understanding, because I haven't had the SEP agreement within the last year. Are they typically circulated or with the immediate community? Like, is the immediate community aware of, or maybe, go ahead.
So, through the chair, just for clarification, Councillor, do you mean the arrangements for the sharing of amenity space and upgrades to laundry?
Yeah.
Those specific matters?
Yeah.
So those are for the residents that, or the tenants, I should say, of the existing building on site. The proposal was an infill on an adjacent piece of land which formed part of the site and a new building. The official plan directs that the new infill development in apartment neighborhoods specifically secure upgrades to existing buildings and or shared arrangements with new amenity spaces on a proposed building. So in this case, there's upgrades to the existing building, laundry facilities, and prior to occupancy, arrangements for sharing of bicycle parking and accessibility to improvements within the new building as well. So that was secured through a Section 37 agreement, but it is exclusive to tenants within the municipal address would be 30 Gilder, whereas the new site is 26 Gilder.
Okay, and does staff feel comfortable that the modifications to traffic flow will be absorbed?
Through the chair, Councillor, yes, we do. There will be a 6.1 meter maintenance that will allow for two-way traffic.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Canavelle. Speakers on this item? Councillor Thompson?
I'll just move the recommendations.
Okay.
And thank the staff.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson's moving the recommendations. Other speakers on this item? Seeing none, so we have the recommendations on SC 20.8, 26 Gilder Drive construction staging area in Ward 21. Councillor Thompson's moving the recommendations. All in favor? And that carries. And our next item is SC 20.21, Fishleigh Drive between Glen Everest Road and Midland Avenue, traffic calming speed humps in Ward 20, held by Deputy Mayor McCullough.
I do have a question on that, but I just wanted to confirm, was 20.3 completed? Yeah. Councillor Thompson had held it? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we missed one. My apologies. All right, we'll come back to it. We'll do 21 now.
I have questions for staff.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is a walk-on, and similarly, I'd asked you these questions last time. Have staff reviewed this? Do they agree with the recommendation? And why is it coming as a walk-on as opposed to a staff report?
Through the chair, thank you, Deputy Mayor McKelvey. We were asked to provide recommendations for a motion, which we did. However, afterwards, we did request for data collection, and it does warrant for traffic calming.
Okay, thank you. So it does meet it meets the warrants?
Absolutely.
And I see you have the drawings there, so you've done these drawings. I assume Councillor Candevelle, you're pretty good, but I assume Councillor Candevelle didn't do these drawings.
We did the drawing.
Okay, so are you, so then based on the warrants and this design, you're supportive of the speed humps on Fishleigh?
Right. We did a request for data collection after the fact, and it does warrant.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions of staff on this item?
Just very quickly. First of all, thank you, staff. And how soon, I know it may vary from road to road, but how soon do you think they'll be implemented?
That jurisdiction lies with, through the chair, sorry, with a traffic calming delivery group. I can find that out for you and let you know. Yes, for sure.
Okay, speakers on this item? Councillor Cannavale, you moving the recommendations?
I'll move the
Councillor Cannavelle's
recommendations.
moving the recommendations. All in favor? That carries. And now our last item. SC 20.3, Assumption of Services, Registered Plan 666M-255, Goldman Ellesmere 2 Development Incorporated, application number 132680033, ESC 37SB, better known as 1001 Ellesmere Road Subdivision, Scarborough, Ward 21. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, through you to staff. Can you walk me through the process with respect to the assumption of services, roadway and so on in an area like this in terms of the development?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So what happens is that when the site is constructed, the first step is that we put on maintenance underground services, which is usually for a period of 2 years.
Sorry, you put on?
maintenance, underground services for a period of 2 years. So then the surface of the road is built. Then we put that surface on maintenance as well for 1 year. So in combination, we start underground services year before, and then the next year starts with the top works. And when the stop works maintenance period is completed and all the deficiencies are cleared, then we write the assumption report, and then it goes to assumption. And during that period, when the top works are completed and there are no deficiencies, the developer can request the city to do the snow removal and garbage collection. And we allow that one to happen before assumption year.
So sorry, I just want to make sure I understand that sufficiently. So at what point does the developer applicant request the city to remove the garbage and remove the snow clearing and so on? At what point?
When the top works are complete, all the curbs are in place and its site is sorted. After that time, once it is done, they have the time limit till August 31st of that year to request snow removal. And then what happens, we inspect, and by October 15, we do the inspection and we tell the developer that we will be doing the snow clearing or not.
Audit.
Yes.
Okay. So the reason why I'm asking you these questions is that I have all these emails relating to this site. Over the last 2.5, 3 years, there has been limited snow clearing, and my office has had to be going after transportation and et cetera. As you can imagine, over what happened the last week or so, the residents are up to their ears. So we're assuming this assumption of services, which we had already started, but haven't really been doing as it relates to snow clearing. We've been picking up the garbage. So what's missing on our part?
I have to loop in with Transportation Service Operations who does the clearing. But
Is there anyone from transportation here? No, I don't want you to answer.
Yeah, no, I can see that this was put on winter maintenance as of 2020.
As of 2020?
Yeah, so this road was on winter maintenance for the city. So city was supposed to do the winter maintenance.
But they haven't been doing it.
Yeah, so I can get back to you after contacting the persons in the.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I asked these questions because the city was supposed to have been doing it for the last 4 years and have not, or been reluctant to doing it. And so I wanted to understand whose responsibility. So that's the reason why I'm asking the question. So you've just clarified it wasn't the responsibility of the developer applicant. It was that of the city, which we haven't been doing based on the emails and the phone calls and so on that we've been receiving from the residents. What assurance will we have when the city now fully assumes the services that the work such as snow clearing will be done? What assurance do we have?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so and the obligations are defined that what standards need to be met. So I will follow up with the transportation operations and ensure that whatever the standards are, they are meeting those standards, and snow removal and all other stuff has been done, should be done as per our minimum standards.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions of staff? Seeing none. Councillor Thompson, would you like to speak?
Yeah. I'm going to obviously move the recommendations that are here because the assumption of services is a requirement going forward. However, I will just simply say that the community is in the Jolly Way area, which is, as you pointed out, the address 1001 Ellesmere, are very disappointed with respect to the level of services that they've been getting from the city as it relates specifically to snow clearing. The garbage has been picked up. There are laneways there associated with that development. And as you may recall, Mr. Chair, many, many moons ago, we had huge issues with respect to some of these laneways and the width of them. And on the other side, we have Queensbury on the east side. We've had some issues there. And I think it's the same developer. Some of the parking spots were not to regular size and so on. And the huge issues that we've had to find parking options for people and so on in the area. So it's been rather problematic. But the most challenging issue with respect to this site is that the city has actually failed to deliver on its own policy and its own obligation of removing the snow or clearing it. And it's not just with the last snowfall that we've had for 2025. It's been over the last 3, almost 4 years. We've been having a hard time trying to get the city to actually do what is required, which is simply clearing, plowing, and shoveling the snow. We've had so many emails and phone calls to my office regarding this site exclusively, and I know I have spoken with staff, and it was unclear to them as to whether or not the assumption of those sort of services prior to this finalization of assumption was a city requirement. So I wonder, and I'm wondering aloud, as to what is the sort of misstep or the lack of clarity. And I wondered, I'm not going to move a motion here at this point, but I may work on a member's motion to seek to find out how we address these issues. Because just up till yesterday, the conversation was, how do we make sure or ensure that this particular area and the site itself was on the city's work plan? And the staff has indicated to us here today that, yeah, it's been on the work plan since 2020, but we haven't been able to provide that service to the residents. And I think that that's a failing on our part, and I think we have to work collectively to do better. I am going to work with you and staff to see how we can clarify this and ensuring that, as you say, we've assumed the service responsibility. However, we have not actually been doing what's needed, which is to clear the snow, plow it to the satisfaction, to our own standards, quite frankly. And so I think that I'm disappointed with that, and I wanted just simply to bring that forward as part of this item for discussion and to create that awareness that residents have, in fact, understood that they were entitled to this level of service, but have not, in fact, been receiving it. And in addition to that, my staff and I have been trying to get the city to recognize that it isn't the developer or the applicant's responsibility, because, and I know I spoke to Mr. Ventresca just even yesterday about this in terms of, okay, do we provide services in advance of taking or the assumption of the services? And the answer was, our policy says yes. And you've clearly illustrated when and how that takes place, but we've failed in this area. And I wondered whether or not there are other areas that we're actually failing as well as part of our responsibility to basically do that work of the service requirement in advance of the actual assumption of service. Mr. Chair, you may remember you were, I believe I think you may have been a staff at that time. We had a situation at William Kitchen Road where we needed a traffic light there, and they were going to give the road back over to the city, the assumption. And I said, no way, we're going to have the developer put the traffic lights. You may remember the number of lawyers who threatened me with letters and lawsuits and so on about the fact that I can't ask for that because they were ready to turn it over to the city. At the city's expense, we would then be responsible for putting traffic signals in an area that needed it. The traffic signals, I'm proud to say, are actually in at William Kitchen Road, but it wasn't a cost to the city, although people relating to the applicant wanted us to actually pay for it. And so I just wanted to make sure that we do what we need to do in advance of paying for any type of service upgrades and so on. I'm sure that we're doing that, but in this case here, we're failing on the snow clearing. So I'd hope that we can do a better job, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the extra 36 seconds. 38 now, 40.
41.
Thanks.
I guess I'll stop it.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson moving the recommendations in the item? Yes. All right, all in favor of the recommendations? And that carries. I believe our agenda is done except for the bills. Who would like to read the bills? Councillor Candavel.
That bills 112, 113, 114, and 115 prepared for the February
20th, 2025 meeting. 20 of the Scarborough Community Council be declared as bylaws and passed subject to Section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006.
Very well read. All in favor? That carries. Madam Clerk, is there one more? Deputy Mayor McKelvey?
Thank you. That confirmatory bills to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Scarborough Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 20 on February 20th, 2025 be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006. I also love this big font.
Me too.
Yeah, big fan.
All in favor? The fonts as well. Carried. Councillor Thompson's moving adjournment. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, that was a big